Hello, and welcome to Literacy Works' webinar, The Aha Moment for Parents, on how to help parents recognize important ways to engage children in learning. Literacy Works thanks the Evanston Community Foundation for making this webinar possible. By the way, you'll soon see some photos of Evanston families along with those of Tolton Center and other Chicago sites. You can watch this webinar alone or with your coworkers. And in fact, we highly encourage you to watch this webinar with your coworkers. By watching with coworkers, you can share your thoughts and ideas and discuss the activities presented together. You'll need to have all the materials printed out in advance. If you missed these, you can go back to the webinar form on the website, fill it in again, and get the link to the PDF. In the handout, pages 1 and 2 suggest ways to use this webinar. You'll also find contact information there. Make sure you have a pen and paper handy. At key moments, we'll ask you to pause the playback in order to reflect, take notes, or discuss. Of course, you can pause the playback at any time you wish. Now, let's begin. I'm Emily Arvizu. I'm the ESL and Family Literacy Coordinator at Tolton Center, and this is my 10th year at Tolton working with parents and families. I came to Tolton Center originally as a full-time volunteer, and I fell in love with family literacy, and I have been there ever since. Tolton Center has offered English as a second language and family literacy programming on Chicago's southwest side for over 10 years. Our program serves predominantly Spanish-speaking families with children from ages 1 to 10. At two of our sites, Casa Juan Diego in Pilsen and Our Lady of Tepeyac Head Start in Little Village, families participate in both adult education and early childhood education. These are our full family literacy programs. Our third site is Thoman Library, which is primarily adult education with family literacy components included as optional sessions. Your program may or may not look like our programs, but most of the activities presented today can be used in a variety of settings. I'm pleased to share the ideas we've developed at Tolton Center through this webinar, the Aha Moment for Parents. We have developed this over the course of 10 years, and each year we have added pieces and layers to create this full program. The webinar will apply to any program that offers opportunities for parent involvement and leadership in early childhood programs, elementary schools, or other family programs. On this slide, you'll see a photo of one of our parents and her young daughter. At Tolton, we recognize that the parents are the child's first and most important educator. We have developed our family literacy program to help parents in that role. Today, we'll be looking at our program as follows. We'll recognize parents' power to educate, parents as educators on field trips, parents as educators in everyday life, and then we'll conclude. We'll begin by talking about recognizing parents' power to educate, because ultimately, we want parents to have that aha moment to say, I have the power to help my child learn. We have a question for you. What do you love about working with parents? Why do you enjoy working with them? We want to give you a chance to reflect on this question and to share together if you're in a group. So you can find the question on page 3 of your handouts. When you're ready, you may restart the webinar. So, what do you love about working with parents? Personally, I love working with parents because I love seeing parents and children learning together and enjoying themselves while doing so. So on the screen, we've put up some of the reasons that you might have come up with. Maybe you said, I see how much the parents care about their kids, or it helps me understand the kids better, or I feel great when parents realize how they make a difference. I'm sure you also came up with lots of other really great reasons too. The parents in our program often tell us that they love their children and they want what's best for them, but they aren't always sure how to make that happen in the midst of day-to-day living. We work with them to create meaningful interactions with their children, and you can help parents increase their meaningful interactions. So, what is a meaningful interaction and why is it important? That is to say, what makes an interaction between a parent and child meaningful? I'm going to give you another chance to reflect or discuss. So take a look at page 4 of your handout. Once again, pause the webinar and take a moment to reflect and discuss. When you're ready, you may restart the webinar. So you've probably come up with some ideas of what meaningful interactions are. At Tolton, we think meaningful interactions are 1. Language rich, meaning that they include lots of back and forth conversation between parent and child. 2. They're intentional, meaning that parents deliberately seek out opportunities to talk with children and to help them learn. 3, they are focused on the child. So that means that the parent is present and focused on the child rather than being distracted by their phone or any other distractions. And lastly, meaningful interactions are based in love, meaning that they enrich the relationship between parent and child. These interactions are important because they strengthen the bond between parent and child, and they also facilitate the child's development. Now, let's talk about parent education. At Tolton Center, our parent education has 4 steps. You'll find this slide and a description of each step in your handout on page 5. However, I suggest you keep your eyes on the webinar screen and refer to the handout later. I'll be explaining each step. The 4 steps are introduce and model, practice, apply, and reflect. Let's talk about the first step, introducing the learning approach to parents and modeling it for them. Here's our first step, introducing and modeling. It is so important to build the parents' confidence in their role as educator for their children. We do this by introducing new vocabulary and concepts, and then we model the technique for the parents. Let's talk about the second step, practicing the technique or approach. In the second step, we are setting up the parents to feel confident in their role as educator. We have found that parents want a chance to practice it amongst themselves, and then they need time to reflect on their experience and to ask questions. This helps them to feel at ease with new material and ideas. It also helps them to make the most of their time with their children. In the photo on the screen, you can see Tolton parents practicing a reading technique to use with their children later. You can see how focused the parents are and how they're working together. Let's talk about the third step, when parents actually apply the approach with their children. In this third step, We bring the children in with their parents. Now that parents have been introduced to the technique, they've seen it modeled, and they've had a chance to practice. This step is the parent's opportunity to apply the approach with their child. Now that parents have practiced, they're feeling confident and they can lead the activity themselves. Or, as you see in the picture, they can even let the child take the lead. At Tolton, during parent and child activities, we encourage parents to use the language that they are most comfortable in. For most students, that will be their native language, whether that be English, Spanish, Arabic, or another language. We want parents to provide a language-rich experience for their children, and speaking in their native language is generally the best way to do so. So let's talk about the final step, reflecting. For this fourth step, we use the think, pair, share model. We give parents questions to guide their conversation in pairs or small groups, and then they report out to the larger group. Instructors float around the room during this time, and they listen for commonalities or questions that can be addressed as a whole group. This reflection and discussion helps parents arrive at their own aha moments. So here is a summary of the 4 steps. You can find this on the bottom half of page 5 of your handouts. So you may have parent education time built into your program, or you may have to find ways to squeeze in parent education. So how can you build in the time for the 4 steps? Turn to page 6 of the handout, reflect or discuss, and then restart the webinar when you're ready. If you have a full family literacy program, these 4 steps can be built into your adult education or parent education curriculum. At Tolton, our parent and child activities correspond with our thematic units so that it doesn't feel like students are missing class time to participate in these activities. If you don't have a full family literacy program, but you do have a parent-child program, an adult education program, or home visiting program, here are some ideas. You could hold mini sessions of 10 to 20 minutes long. You could have one staff member occupy kids while another works with parents. Or if you do home visiting, you could spend some time one-on-one. And as a matter of fact, at our Thoman Library program, where we don't have any early childhood education, only adult education, we hold optional parenting mini sessions. So let's move on to talking about parents as educators on field trips. Field trips are a great way of encouraging meaningful interactions between parents and children. Let's see how the 4 steps of parent education apply to field trips. So here are some of the places we've recently visited. It's not a comprehensive list, but it's just something to get you thinking of the possibilities. This year, we've been to the Children's Museum, the Museum of Science and Industry, the Chicago Cultural Center, and Millennium Park. And remember also that field trips don't always have to be to museums. They could be to places in the community, like the fire station. So be creative. For this webinar, we'll use a field trip to the Chicago Children's Museum as an example, but this approach can apply to almost any field trip you take. As with our other parenting activities, we always begin field trip preparation with parents only, and then we bring in the children later. For the Children's Museum field trip, we hold a Let's Play workshop, which helps parents to understand the importance of play for children's learning. This workshop actually includes all 4 of our parent education steps. It includes the introduce and model, practice, apply with children, and reflect. The Let's Play preparation workshop is important because the Children's Museum is focused on learning through play. It's important for parents to understand that play is more than fun, it's learning. In this workshop, we read one of our favorite books, Not a Box, where a rabbit imagines their cardboard box is a bunch of different things. In groups, parents receive a small box and they brainstorm together what their box could become. We decided to take this Let's Play workshop just one step further. For the application step of our parent education, we invited the children to join their parents. We provided each family with a box and recycled materials. With some imagination, parents and their children turned their boxes into a dollhouse, a bus, a robot, and even a TV with a moving screen, which you can see in the picture to the left. The mother and the daughter are together working on this moving screen. So we also provided the extra materials for parents to take home so that they could do the same activity with their school-age children. But the Let's Play workshop is only one part of the preparation for the actual field trip. We also spend time talking about the museum. We pass out maps of the museum to all the parents and we discuss them as a group. Many museums have field trip resources like these maps available on their websites, so be sure to check out the website of your field trip destination while you're planning. We know our parents sometimes get nervous going to places that they've never been before, and we also know that a preview of the location and exhibits helps to boost their confidence and puts them at ease. With this in mind, we actually made our own pretend children's museum, a mock museum. Just like at the real museum, we made a water play section, a dinosaur dig, a firefighting section, and an area for general play. This slide shows the water table we used for the water area of our mock museum. Once we had everything set up for the kids, this is what it looked like. And here's the end result of our dinosaur dig. The important thing here is to be creative and to use what you have. In this photo, we have a playground with wood chips, so we buried the dinosaurs there. But in other locations, this wasn't possible, so we used rice in a Rubbermaid bin. So again, be creative and use what you have. For our mock museum, we also did a firefighter dress-up station and an area for general play. So in addition to this, parents do a walkthrough of the mock museum. The instructors lead parents through each pretend exhibit and invite parents who have previously been to the museum to share their experiences in each area. Then the parents brainstorm together how they would engage their child in each particular area. Some of the questions that parents consider are, what questions can I ask to encourage my child to think more deeply? What vocabulary might I need? And what can my child learn in this area? Here are some sample questions that parents could ask their children. For example, what do you see in this area? What do you observe? What do you think we do here? What do you already know about this topic or this area? What interests you? How does this connect to your life? You can also find these questions on page 7 of your handout. And of course, you'll want to make sure that the questions are appropriate to the particular field trip you're planning. In the application step of the process, children join their parents in the mock museum. The parents guide their children through each area and focus on making meaningful interactions. Staff walks around and encourages interactions between parents and children. Again, because we want families to have language-rich experiences, we encourage them to use their native language. Then, we give the parents the chance to talk with each other about the experiences they had with their kids in the mock museum. We love giving our parents opportunities to reflect on what they're learning and experiencing. And this photo is an example of that vital fourth step of reflection and discussion. Next, we provide time for the parents to explore the museum's website. We let parents know that they don't need to see everything in the museum in just one visit. We encourage them to think about what would be most interesting to their child so that they can start there. If parent education isn't built into your program, encourage parents to explore the website outside of your program, maybe on their computers at home, or if they don't have a computer at home, encourage them to use the computers at their local library. Now that the parents have so much information from the mock museum, looking at the map, and researching the museum website, parents move on to the pre-trip planning guide, which is on page 8 of your handout. Please note that we created this handout in both English and in our students' native language of Spanish. We want our students to fully participate in this process, regardless of their current level of English language skills. So on the planning guide, one question reads, I will prepare my children for the field trip by, and the parents complete the sentence with their own ideas. For example, they might complete the sentence by saying, I will prepare my children for the field trip by talking to them about how they should behave in a museum. For the question, while we're on the field trip, I will make the most of my time with my children by, they might answer by asking my children questions. At Tolton, we like to provide our parents with incentives. In this case, if a parent brings back a completed planning guide prior to the field trip, we invite them to choose a book from our stash of giveaway books. Most of these books have been donated to us by individuals or other nonprofits. For a list of ideas on how to get donated books, please see the suggestions on page 9 of your handout. You can look over these suggestions after the webinar is finished. Sometime after the trip, we give parents time to reflect and discuss together. Here are some examples of questions you might ask the parents. What areas did you visit, and how did you decide? What's one positive memory you have from this trip? What was difficult? Here are some more questions. What did you learn about your child on this trip? What did your kids enjoy, and how will you extend that beyond this one experience? And my personal favorite, what surprised you about your visit? You can find a list of sample questions on page 10 of your handout. In Tolton's full family literacy programs, regular library visits are built into our program. During our visits, we encourage parents to check out books that relate to interests discovered during the field trip. If library visits aren't part of your program, encourage families to go on their own. Now, let's talk about ways to help parents have meaningful interactions with their children every day. Parents and children interact all the time. We want to encourage our parents to make the most of interactions during normal day to day living in places like the neighborhood, at the laundromat, in the grocery store, when they're traveling around town, or during bath time and meal times. We certainly want our parents to take full advantage of the field trips we're able to offer, but we also want them to see that it's possible to utilize the parenting skills they're learning in most any location and during any activity. For this reason, we also incorporate mini trips around the neighborhood. This picture shows our group in Chicago's Loop. Now, picture the same group exploring their own neighborhood. By exploring their own neighborhood, parents get ideas that they can use one-on-one with their children as they go about their daily routines. Most of Tolton's parents live in the Little Village or Pilsen neighborhoods of Chicago, so we focused on those two neighborhoods. We know that the parents in our program are excited to use the English that they're learning in class, and they especially love learning alongside their children. So for that reason, we spend time introducing vocabulary that can be used in day-to-day interactions with their children in the neighborhood. We do still encourage parents to interact with their children in their native language as well. If you work with native speakers of English, you'll still want to brainstorm vocabulary with them to remind them of the rich vocabulary that they can share with their children. During our ESL classes, parents learn neighborhood vocabulary and practice it together. If parents are not in adult education classes, you could still devote a little time to brainstorming or sharing vocabulary during short parenting meetings. In our adult education classes, parents create maps of their neighborhood. This gives them a chance to utilize the new vocabulary, and it helps parents to feel confident, to feel like they're the experts. One way to give parents an opportunity to apply their learning is to invite them to plan a neighborhood scavenger hunt for themselves and for their children. Here's an example of a scavenger hunt checklist. These images come from esllibrary.com. Unfortunately, I'm unable to share this copy with you because it's a paid membership site, but it'd be very easy to create a customized scavenger hunt page using clip art and the table function in a Word document. Before heading out on the scavenger hunt, parents brainstorm how to engage their children during the hunt. We encourage the parents to think about how they can expand the hunt to address their child's learning needs. So for example, in our last scavenger hunt, one parent decided to include a letter hunt to help her child recognize the letters of his name. As they walked around looking for the places and people in the neighborhood, they also searched for the letters of her son's name. We encourage our parents to engage their children in conversation throughout the scavenger hunt. It doesn't have to be focused solely on the vocabulary and what they're searching for. We encourage them to talk to their children about what they're seeing, feeling, and experiencing. The important thing is for parents to take advantage of the time they have with their children. The scavenger hunt idea can be easily adapted to your program. If going out as a group is not convenient for your program, you can encourage families to go out on their own and report back to you the following day or week. The last step is to reflect. We give our parents a chance to reflect on their experience and to think about how they will continue to engage their children in the neighborhood in the future. Parent education and family literacy programs are very diverse. Some programs include an adult literacy component. Others simply have a parenting program. Either way, you can take the ideas from this webinar and adapt them to your program and families. To help you, we've created an activity for you to do after the webinar. In the webinar, we've discussed how to help parents recognize opportunities to engage their children in meaningful interactions on field trips and in the neighborhood. Now you can try your hand at planning an activity. After the webinar, in groups, you'll plan how you would prepare parents to engage their children in a place or situation that you pick. Let's take a moment to look at the handout together. Look at pages 11, 12, and 13. On page 11, you'll see these photos. You or your group will choose one place to focus on: the park, the zoo, a supermarket or grocery store, or another place of your own choosing. Be sure to pick a place that would be realistic for your program for a parent-child field trip or community activity. Now go to pages 12 and 13. Once you've picked a place or situation, you'll make a plan for how to prepare parents to engage their children in that setting. You'll be addressing these questions. How will you prepare parents? How will you support parents during the experience? How will you follow up with them afterward? So once again, pages 11, 12, and 13 are the activity for you and your colleagues to do after the webinar is over. It'll give you a chance to apply the ideas from this webinar. Now that I've shared the Tolton Center approach to supporting parents as their child's most important teacher, I hope that you're able to find ways to adopt and adapt the approach to best serve the parents in your program. We've loved seeing how our parents grow and change, and we love hearing stories about their interactions. Some of our favorite moments are when parents come to us with photos of activities they've done with their children, and they almost always comment, "We had so much fun together." And that's what keeps us going at Tolton Center. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to hear from you, so we invite you to connect with Tolton Center. You'll find our contact information on page 2 of your handout. I also want to encourage you to connect with Literacy Works. You can visit Literacy Works' website to find resources and links for parent education and family literacy. Literacy Works invites you to stay in touch by email, by the website, and on social media. You'll find the contact information on page 2 of your handout. And please evaluate this webinar. Give Literacy Works feedback to help prepare for future webinars. Watch for a link to an online survey in your email. Thanks again to the Evanston Community Foundation, and thank you for attending this webinar.